You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. We have a densely packed show for you today, so I better get right to it. My guests are two ingenious organizers who found new ways of reaching women. One is a Muslim feminist in Australia. The other is a Nigerian feminist based in Chicago. They're both terrific. And before we do any of that, or deal with sexual harassment and Roy Moore, we need to go inside the headlines. No. We'll get to the real sexual revolution that's happening, and to Roy Moore, and Al Franken, and the lot, in fighting words at the end of the program. But now, the weekly American gun massacre. Oh, this week there were 26 people shot to death in a Texas church by a white Christian man with a history of, you know it, domestic violence, holding a gun to the head of his ex-wife and fracturing the skull of an infant. Russian bots, Google, and YouTube collaborated as usual on flooding fake news stories claiming the shooter was a leftist, Antifa, Black Lives Matter sympathizer. Then, in Northern California, where it looks like only 5 were slaughtered, plus at least 10 more, 7 of them children severely wounded, and a white Christian shooter himself killed. He was aiming for an elementary school, but he had to settle for killing a woman neighbor who had a restraining order against him, random passers-by that he shot, and oh yes, his wife was found shot, her murdered body hidden beneath the floorboards of their house. Soon there'll be daily massacres, so then we can never talk politics after a shooting at all. For example, we could never raise the issue that until the imposition of sanctions against Russia stemming from the crisis in Ukraine, the manufacturer of the AK-47, Kalashnikov, state-owned by the Russian holding company Rostec, was selling more rifles to the U.S. civilian market than to the Russian military. Or we couldn't say that domestic violence perpetrators should never, ever have access to guns. Might as well get the Trump dump out of the way. Chucky's back from his Asian tour, having accomplished nothing, but proud of having discovered state dinners. Nothing cheers him up more than hanging around anti-democratic leaders, so he was especially delighted to hear the Philippine rogue president, the one who boasts of having murdered people, once again demonize the press. Trump giggled in response, publicly. The Philippines ranks as the 5th most dangerous country in the world for journalists now. By the way, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, known to us as the malevolent elf, has informed Congress that there are 27 open Justice Department investigations into leaks to reporters. Also, the first trials begin for people arrested during protests at the Trump inaugural. Now, we could go into Trump's latest nomination for Secretary of Health and Human Services, another industry appointee, Alex Azar, who until last January was head of the pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly's U.S. division. Or we could laugh ourselves silly at his hopes of a tax bill or his hopes of trashing, again, Obamacare. But I think it's more important to check in on a story that's not getting the attention it should. How Trump is swiftly reshaping the judiciary, filling vacancies on appeals courts where Democratic senators up for re-election next year in states Trump won, like Indiana, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, might just be pressured not to block his nominees. So we have to pressure back. The plan is also to speed them through confirmation. The GOP is systematically filling appellate seats that they deliberately held open during Obama's final 2 years. And they're filling those seats with a particularly conservative group of judges who will have life tenure. Democrats, who in late 2013 abolished the ability of 41 lawmakers to block such nominees with the filibuster, then they lost control of the Senate. Well, they have little power to stop them now. Of Trump's 18 appellate nominees so far, 14 are men and 16 are white. Appeals court judges draw less attention than the Supremes, but the 12 regional appeals courts exercise vast influence. Remember how important they were over Trump's travel ban. And they render the final judgment on about 60,000 cases a year that are not among the approximately only 80 that the Supremes actually hear. Trump is the first Republican president whose nominees can be confirmed by simple majority vote, and the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society are the real deciders here. Ever since George W. Bush changed the traditional process in which the American Bar Association had always vetted potential judges before their nomination by the White House, the ABA has been drastically weakened. So even when the ABA deemed two of Trump's nominees totally unqualified, both nominations have advanced to the Senate floor. These appellate appointments will affect our legal system and could imperil our civil and human rights for a generation. And it turns out that federal law enforcement agencies have only 15% female agents, according to a Politico survey. The lack of diversity contributes to a lack of trust. After last year's election, Hillary Clinton supporters accused Comey, former FBI Director Comey, of bowing to pressure from Bureau conservatives in reopening her email investigation at all. Some critics noted that the claim might be easier to dismiss if the Bureau were not 80% male and 80% white. Then again, on the maybe people can change front, Fox News anchor Shepard Smith got into trouble by acting like a journalist. He actually punched holes in the nonsense story that Fox News has been pushing every day, charging that Secretary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, approved the sale of U.S. uranium through Canada to Russia because of donations to the Clinton Foundation. She did not. A committee of 9 evaluated the sale. The president approved the sale. The deal passed a year and a half before she became Secretary of State. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission and others had to offer permits, and none of the uranium was exported for use by the U.S. to Russia. Smith said all this on air, and Fox News viewers were furious. His job may now be in jeopardy for telling the truth. The Canadian Senate approved legislation to amend an 141-year-old law that has prevented Indigenous women and their descendants from obtaining the same rights allotted to Indigenous men, including various tax breaks, the ability to vote for Indigenous governments, access to land on reserves, and expanded health care coverage. But it has stirred controversy because some rights would be granted only after consultation with Indigenous groups, and some of them have objected to the legislation, arguing that resources are limited. What, and should be limited for men only? If a status First Nations woman marries a non-status man, she and her Indigenous lineage through the female line were permanently barred from accessing their rights and communities, and the United Nations has found this legacy of inequality to be a root cause of high rates of violence and discrimination against Indigenous women in Canada. For decades, First Nations women in Canada and their descendants have fought legal battles that helped erode gender discrimination from the Indian Act. The current version of the legislation is a compromise of sorts, though senators supporting the government defeated an amendment to include a deadline to ensure such rights are enacted. The House of Commons is expected to pass the bill. And last, in Zimbabwe, the once revolutionary leader turned tyrant, Mugabe, has finally fallen. So do they all, eventually. We have to take a pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll return directly with my first guest, who is a combination of sisterhood, intelligent, theoretical, feminist politics, practical politics, and soup, beautiful soup. Stick around.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. Hana Assafiri describes herself as an agitator for social change and strong communities, as an unconventional Muslim feminist, and a subversive who unapologetically speaks truth to power. She's an advocate of social justice. She's also the founder of Speed Date a Muslim. Yeah, you heard it, Speed Date a Muslim. And she's the owner of the cafe Moroccan Delicacy and also Moroccan Soup Kitchen, where the event takes place in Melbourne, Australia. She has started to change the conversation around Muslim women, and we speak with her all the way from Melbourne, Hana Assafiri. Well, welcome, Hana Assafiri. Marhaba. Marhaba. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Marhaba, right back at you.
Listen, you're doing this just joyous thing that combines women, sisterhood, understanding, education, and food. I mean, what could be better? There's nothing else who cares about anything else? You have started, well, first of all, you're the owner and proprietor of this amazing place in Melbourne, Australia, which is called the Moroccan Soup Bar, which has become a sort of fixture and an institution. And I wish I had food from it right this minute. You don't.
Well, look.
You don't do takeout You don't do takeout and delivery all the way to New York City, do you? Probably not.
We do if you bring your own container. Absolutely. We try and. We try and, I guess from the very inception, almost 2 decades back now, the Moroccan Soup Bar is founded on the idea that if we circuit break the cycle of disadvantage for women through practical means like employment, and we put women in an environment where they're not only validated, particularly the most marginalised sections of community, that they find themselves in an environment which supports and validates who they are, as well as educates and possibly advocates, depending on their needs, then they in turn, and it's proven time and again, champion the very causes of their disadvantage, and at times the experiences of violence that have brought them to us in the first place.
Oh.
So to me, it's a no-brainer. But sadly, institutions and systems and services are not built on, nor founded on, supporting and lifting women.
No.
That they're built, and the requirements and the criteria for employing women is almost always too difficult for some to reach.
Yeah.
So ours, I guess the women interview me before I interview them for a job. They just simply walk in.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And of course, you haven't stopped there, because you have created this wonderful thing that I hope we can emulate somehow in the States called
Speed Date a Muslim.
Speed Date a Muslim, which is a free monthly event that you hold in the cafe, in which visitors are invited to sit across from Muslim women and ask frank questions about Islam.
Yes.
And you feed them soup and tea and sweets, and this is miraculous. This is just, tell about how this came to be.
It's not up for debate. Islamophobia, where people have been made to fear one another, and certainly the hostility that's been whipped up. The sad reality is people don't pick up a Quran and start bashing on the Quran. They see the symbol of their fear, which is almost always women, the softer target, and we have a go at women. So for me, what's founded on still the belief in human decency is that if we can humanize the very thing people have been made afraid of, we can almost always shift the perceptions by having engagements and building bridges across the divide of hostility rather than reacting to them. So the idea was born that not only do we bring people together to have frank conversations about Islam, but equally Muslim women found ourselves in a predicament where we're on the one hand pushing back against a sentiment of Islamophobia, all the while rejecting the misogyny and the patriarchy that exists inside Islamic institutions, where So that became a tricky position or platform to straddle, but nonetheless a unique one where community was hungry, pardon the pun, for that. It had an appetite for a more humane, more nuanced understanding of how it is that we can engage in a better way, and our plurality then is celebrated. So they became a thing. Initially, we just simply set them up as, who knows, maybe some people will be interested, maybe they won't, and we'll just evolve or not. And yet they've become so popular that, we've been called to run them in a whole host of different settings, particularly rural and remote. And even internationally. I do think the importance of Muslim women themselves defining the platform, and they're not an occasion to speak to people's Islamophobia and just kind of in that accusatory way. What I invite, and I try and moderate these events, I invite inquiry, I invite curiosity, not judgment. That if you, and both from Muslims and non-Muslims, that we all learn. I mean, I did have a Muslim woman say to me, she'd never sat opposite a bikie and felt safe before. So everybody learns. And I think when you can showcase that ultimately these are about our humanity and coming back to the very thing that makes us human, which are shared experience, no matter who our creed, and the last aspect that to me has become crystallised through these events is that the subjugation of women, no matter whether we're talking about the Houses of Parliament or the Houses of God, that these are all founded on the same principles. Yes, they manifest differently, but all men conceptualise their societal institutions, and as a consequence, women are subjugated and by extension at times violated because of the very structural. There's nothing unique about Islam in how it manifests in how it treats women, yet the specific issues are unique, absolutely, which we try and reject and speak out against.
Right. The most courageous feminists on the frontest lines, if there is such a word, on the most front-forward lines that I know of in the world are, in fact, Muslim feminists.
I mean, if anybody continues to tell me that banning the burqa is going to somehow liberate the world from terrorism, that is the most preposterous conversation I've heard.
Yes, it is.
It is on par with people saying if we ban the burqa, we'll fix climate change. That is how absurd that ridiculous conversation is.
Yes, it is. You mean it won't fix climate change? Oh, my goodness, I wish I'd known that.
I know. I'm going to disappoint you, my friend, but sadly. And again, it's about the neuroses around women's bodies and women's dress and women's... And look, it's complex because the burqa in Iran, for example, I would promote banning it, and in Saudi. But the burqa where people are freely choosing to wear it in an environment that they're pushing back against hostility, I defend people's right to wear it. I don't wear it. Well, I defend your right to walk butt naked in the street if that's what you need to do.
Well, that's part of the entire generalization problem, which is that people, just like people will refer to individual European countries and then talk of, quote, Africa, as if it were one country. You must get, the women at these meetings, they must get every kind of question from theological ones to how do you fast during Ramadan or something?
Yes, look, we do, and I think obviously there's still a number of issues inside these conversations that need to be had. Some are going to be tense and difficult. Yes. Some are going to be easily and readily kind of, we're happy to respond and answer, do you wear your hijab in your shower? Some things are quite fun, actually.
Yes.
But there are also some tensions around, and this is the reality, and I guess I find for someone like me who prides herself on been woman-centered as a conversation and reclaiming my empowerment inside an understanding of Islam, that tension for feminists is almost too difficult to bear, that you cannot be a Muslim and a feminist in a real way. There's this perception from even the most open-minded progressive feminists that at some point the hijab and the conversation around the hijab needs to be understood, because from their perception they cannot get their head around the idea that the hijab is a tool of oppression, of male oppression. Yeah. Whereas we're trying to say you need to be able to see that the hijab is an expression of somebody's faith. That, yes, oppressive systems exist in all societies, but enable me to articulate and express how and what it means to be a Muslim woman and finding my empowerment inside Islam as a woman, for example. And those conversations are tense when it comes to Western feminists and Muslims, because we need to necessarily superimpose our own understanding of what it means to be free and superimpose that onto another. And that is the very difficulty that we're trying to kind of interrogate, if you like.
But that is so crucial. That is absolutely vital.
Yes, for us, though, I think there are, and coming back to what are the broader kind of global issues that are creating these tensions, that are manifesting onto I guess, the aggression and the hostility that's been levelled at women living in the West.
That's right.
And those tensions are, as far as I'm concerned, the West itself, and when I mean that by ideology, not people, yeah? We'll just assume for the sake of conversation, that it needs to necessarily see, and it emboldens Muslim men to be more misogynist, because they become the arbiters of what is Islam.
That's right.
We fix Islam to a time and place and attribute it to the most barbaric behaviour because that suits our definition. And equally, it absolves Western men of any responsibility for violence against women.
Isn't that a coincidence?
Well, absolutely. Almost always, whenever there's an issue, in Australia at least, around violence against women, we tend to go to men for Quranic explanations. Come to women, guys.
Yes.
Why do you go to men?
Precisely.
Because they tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is a very exciting project, because it's both intellectual and emotional. It's practical and personal and idealistic, and it has soup connected with it. I mean, it is
absolutely.
Now, next year I have a book coming out, a new book coming out, and it comes out first in Australia, before even in the States. It's coming out with Spinifex Press. It's my seventh book of poems, Dark Matter, and I'm so delighted that Spinifex is bringing it out. So I may very well be in Melbourne at some point in 2018, and by God, I'm going to show up at the Moroccan Soup Kitchen demanding soup.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thank you for the work that you do with Speed Data Muslim and with the restaurant, and as a feminist in your own life. You're
thank you.
You're a real international resource, and we're very grateful to have you. And thanks for being with us on Women's Media Center Live. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Robin.
And it's time to pop into the surrealism corner. Some of these are shorties I'll just put out there because they speak for their own surreal selves. The con man in control of our government, Donald Trump, has stated publicly his disappointment on discovering he's not allowed to personally direct law enforcement and to command the Justice Department and the FBI. It was a crushing blow to discover that being President of the United States did not automatically equip him with his own personal palace guard and secret police. No wonder he's cranky. And there would be another reason if he hadn't managed to totally ignore it: the report of his own administration on climate change, directly contradicting Trump's position 13 federal agencies last week unveiled an exhaustive scientific report that says humans are, in fact, the dominant cause of the global temperature rise that has created the warmest 115-year period since the Industrial Revolution in the history of civilization. Of course, if Trump is so unhappy, we would understand if he just resigned. Then we'd go after Pence. Now, normally I welcome academics who, through their careful research, validate what women have already been saying for centuries. And certainly in this country for the past 50 years, I know because I was there and one of the women saying these very things. So validation is always nice. Although until such a moment of good housekeeping seal of approval from the ivy-covered walls arrives, being dismissed as having mere anecdotal evidence as opposed to the hard empirical evidence that experts compiled, anecdotally, that's not so nice. In any event, I can't help fits of merriment over such experts as Dr. Samuel Smithyman, now age 72 and a clinical psychologist in South Carolina. Dr. Smithyman decided he wanted to know just what made a rapist as the subject of his dissertation. Now, on the face of it, that seems sensible since sexual assault victims and survivors are 10-to-1 in their studies on them over studies on perpetrators, since sexual assault is considered a woman's issue even though men commit the crime virtually all the time. Years ago, the studies on the men, few as they were, relied on convicted rapists, which skews the data since men in prison are often so-called generalists who would steal anything, your television, your watch, and they would steal sex. But men who commit sexual assault and are not imprisoned because they get away with it are the so-called specialists. Now, that was the second wave of study and analysis. More recent studies that include, for instance, college students and other communities, now we're getting into everyman and the boy next door. Well, these studies avoid legal language like rape and sexual assault and instead use neutral and astonishing terms like non-consensual sexual behavior. Non-consensual sex, not rape. Surreal. But to this kind of language, men admit easily. Words matter. Antonia Abbey of Wayne State University found that young men who expressed remorse were more likely not to offend the following year, while those who blamed their victims were more likely to do it again. Or, as one repeat offender put it, quote, "I felt I was repaying her for sexually arousing me." Close quote. Kevin Swartout of Georgia State University suggests that low-frequency offenders are more common on college campuses than previously thought. Duh, Kevin. Others chime in, noting factors like men readily buying into the rape myths and excuses of heavy drinking, perceived pressure to have sex, the idea that no means yes, and a peer group that uses hostile language to describe women. Men aroused by rape porn is another, and narcissism magnifies the odds that men will commit sexual assault. Furthermore, ta-da! Experts feel that their research into hostile attitudes toward women supports the feminist analysis that rape is not about sex, but about power, especially power over women. Sherry Hamby, editor of the journal Psychology of Violence, notes that studies of incarcerated rapists, even men who admit to keeping sex slaves in conflict zones, find a convenient disconnect. It's not that they deny sexual assault happens. It's just that the crime is committed by the monster over there. No one thinks they're a bad guy, Dr. Hamby says. Rapists don't believe they are the problem. Well, leaving aside that these studious social scientists have now fallen on feminist platitudes with an air of enormous discovery, bless their hearts, the one thing they've left out of this is that the sense of male disconnect and entitlement they examine is part of a larger systemic problem, and it's called patriarchy. Last, in today's Surrealism Corner, no, you're not crazy. Yet again, you're not crazy. Women are more sensitive to pain than men. No, this is not just because most days it seems like we face more reasons to feel pain either. Dr. Jeffrey Mogill, Mogil, a neuroscientist at McGill University in Montreal, noted, quote, "It doesn't matter how you measure the pain or what kind of pain you're measuring, the debate is pretty much over. Males and females are using different kinds of cells and different portions of the immune system to produce what ends up being pain." Close quote. 20 years ago, neurons were the focus of most pain research, but now scientists know that immune cells and bacteria also generate molecules that trigger pain signals. In particular, microglia, immune cells once thought to be just garbage collectors of the brain, well, they play a vital role. For instance, one kind of pain, allodynia, characterized by hypersensitivity to normal stimulation, could be reversed in mice using blockers targeting microglia. But the treatment worked only in male animals. The blockers showed no effect at any dose for females. This means that, as women have suspected, and as gender-specific medicine has been trying to point out, many antidotes for pain are still based on the male anatomy, since most research is based on male animals. Mogul says the investigators have simply not been looking. I guess it was too convenient to call women crybaby sissies who just aren't tough like boys and men. Ouch, damn it. Sexism pervades everything and is truly surreal. Time for another quick break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and we'll be right back with my next guest, who is an interesting coda to the theme of judgment or non-judgment, particularly among women. It's an interesting theme that's emerged in today's program. This woman is organizing online, and wow, is she ever doing it globally. Don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. My next guest, Lola Omolola, is a Nigerian-born journalist. She's the Chicago-based journalist now and the mother of two, and she has founded a private, or secret as they call it on Facebook, group called Female in Nigeria, FIN. But wow, has it grown, and it's not just in Nigeria or Kansas, as they say anymore, Dorothy. It's fantastic. And here's Lola Omolola. Lola, welcome to the program.
Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. You've done a really cool thing, affirmative thing in a world that isn't very at this particular moment, in creating FIN, Female in Nigeria. Tell us about FIN and how you founded it and what it is.
You know, FIN is actually now Female in. We recently dropped the Nigeria because as we started evolving and growing so fast, we realized that lots of women from all around the world were, part of, coming into FIN. And they would share their stories and say, I'm not a female in Nigeria, but... So we knew we had to take out the Nigeria so that those women would also feel like they were at home in the community.
That's wonderful. Now it's worldwide.
Yes, we are pretty global now. Well,
tell what exactly it is for listeners who don't know.
Female In started as FIN in September of 2015, and it started, I think, as a direct consequence of what happened with the girls when the schoolgirls were abducted from their schools. Yes, the Chibok girls. Right. During the Bring Back Our Girls. It directly led to my decision to create FIN. You see, as a woman who was raised in a society where those women got kidnapped, I was really preoccupied with the elements which I felt led to that event. The root causes were there, and it was glaring, and no one was talking about them, and which means that, women were still vulnerable. And even till now, even as I speak with you, those girls still have not been, some of them, more than 100 of them, are still in captivity.
Right.
So I saw, the root causes. There was a society that never gave value to the life of a woman.
Yeah.
Culture, traditions, religion, these elements they just reinforce within us that we are less than.
Yes.
And what happens when that, when you have a community, a society like that? In order to address all of those elements, I decided it was necessary to start from the foundation. And that's to help the Nigerian woman find her own voice. And that's how FIN came about. I created this community about women expressing themselves.
On Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. And at first it was a secret community, because the harassment of women who speak up, the harassment of women, period, online, and those who actually speak up and speak out is quite severe, we all know. So is that why the group was sort of secret and by referral only?
Actually, it is still secret and still by referral only.
Aha.
Yeah, we are staying a secret group, but not for the reason you think. We're staying, you see, I recognize, when we first started, I figured that a safe space would be a good start, where women felt like they could express themselves.
Yes.
But we all know that the internet can't really provide much of a safe space because, folks will still share people's experiences if the people didn't want their experiences to be shared.
Yeah.
So we evolved and we became something that was more of an empowering force, where we would tell a woman, look, we're not trying to teach you how to hide. What we're trying to do is show you how to step into your truth and gradually go through the process of learning how to speak up. The secrecy of the Facebook group is just basically a semantic. It's just a language of, the fact that on Facebook, in order to have a group that is private, they're called secret groups.
Right.
We're just holding each other's hands and showing compassion to each other and helping women who grew up in what I call a pinch and shush culture learn how to start stepping into our truth, owning our own story, and learning how to be vulnerable, and also learning how to compassionately, say, I see you, and I hear you, to each other.
God, that's beautiful. And get support for where they are, and have what I call the you too effect, where a woman suddenly realizes she's not alone. It's not her fault. She's not just crazy.
And let me tell you, in the community that I'm talking about, we've never had anything like that. There are no outlets by which you express yourself. We were as early as age 3. Let me even give you a sense of how it is in real life. As early as age 3, you learn, as soon as a girl shows a sign of self-awareness, she literally gets she learns to shut up because she gets a pinch, an extremely hurtful pinch from most likely the women in her family. Because children are supposed to be seen, especially girls, and not heard.
Of course.
And therefore, you learn how to, with the pinch and the shush, you learn how to be quiet. You are trained to be quiet.
Yes.
And that reinforces constantly that self-expression is not something that you are encouraged to have, which obviously has far-reaching consequences on your heart.
Right.
And on your sense of self.
Right, and this is true of women all over the world in all sorts of different cultures. So you're now hearing from women in other countries all over the world?
Oh, yes. It's amazing. From the United States to Africa to Europe to, India to, Pakistan, the Middle East. Women are stepping into my inbox and saying, I have a story that I want to tell. And I feel like my life has been a pressure cooker of having stories or having things happen to me and not being able to share them and know that I will be supported. That's the person who I'm sharing to isn't just waiting to judge me and tell me what I should have done better.
I was very impressed by the emphasis in your over 1 million members now, my God, of the non-judgmental aspect of this, so that women are not only taught to speak up for themselves, but to have compassion for each other. That's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. You know what? When we were around 500, it became really obvious to me that women wanted to speak up. In fact, we couldn't stop speaking up. Then, guess what happened? The enforcers came. The same women who were conditioned to pinch and shush us in real life. They showed up.
Interesting.
In full force. And you know what we did? We countered them with rules. And do not judge was the first one. We declared, I literally made a declaration that this space is going to be a judgment-free space, which directly took on the pinch and shush enforcers.
Yes.
And I think that there was a defining moment for me that I'm not even going to forget in a hurry. The group was just a little over 500 people, and I remember women would reach out and question our ability to sustain a group if we were going to remove members who violated the rule. And my response and the FIN policy was quite simple. I was prepared to remove 500 women in a group of 550 women in order to protect a single woman's ability to tell her story.
Wow.
It was as simple as that.
Wow.
And we followed through on it. We didn't give an inch at all. And that was true then. That is still true today at 1.3 million women. I will take out 1 million women from FIN in order for a single woman to be able to comfortably share a story.
I mean, this is just so amazing and so affirmative. I mean, despite obviously the stories that come in range from domestic violence and battery to incest to rape and I mean every horror that happens to women in cultures all over the world in patriarchy. And
it was hard. It was really hard for me. Women would start their posts and say, I have not shared this with anyone in 40 years.
Oh, yes.
But I'm going to talk about this now. Women would share stories where you could tell that they just had to get it out.
Yes.
And when we first started, Miss Robin, it was hard. It was hard for me. I couldn't sleep. I stopped eating.
Of course.
I just couldn't believe like the depth of experiences and pain that people are going around with in their daily lives.
Yeah.
It was just too much. It's too much.
I know.
For one person.
No,
and all we all need to do is take our egos out and actually listen.
Yes, and listen to each other. When there's a line by the late she's dead now American poet Muriel Rukeyser that says, if one woman were to speak the truth about her life, the world would split open. And one of the things that you have done is to split open the world so that women can surface from having been buried, and women can surface having been buried and speak their truth to each other and recognize in each other's voices their own truths. This is just brilliant, brilliant and beautiful. And you're going to continue and get even bigger, I take it.
Nothing can stop me. I'm dedicating my life, my soul, everything that I am to this. If all I could do in this world is to make sure there's no woman somewhere who has a story to tell, and she can't tell it in her own name, I want to find that woman and help her see that she can do that with me. And we're creating, I don't want followers. I don't want anybody following me. Each of the women in our group become leaders by themselves.
Yes.
And they can provide that for the women next to them in their local environment.
Right.
I was very happy if that's all I've been able to achieve.
Well, that's a lot. That's a huge lot. The ripple effect from what you're doing, because as each woman finds her voice, she inspires other women, and that ripple effect is incalculable. Tell me, is there any way that listeners to this program who get wildly inspired and excited can be of help to you in this project, or is it just organically going on by itself?
There's a lot of ways to be helpful to me. And one of them is for us. And this is, I know it's a dream right now because I have no money, but it would be great if we could have brick and mortar locations where a woman who doesn't have access to the internet can make her way, because, it is a privilege to be able to use the internet for a lot of people.
Yes.
It would be great if a woman can walk into a location near her, a resource center, where she knows she walks in. There's a woman there who will listen to her. There's a woman here who will provide linkage services to domestic violence help, who can help her with parenting classes, who can, it would be great if we had that. So if there's anyone who is able to make that happen for us women around the world, that would be amazing. We would do it day and night.
Is there a specific website where people could donate to that, toward that end?
Right now we haven't floated any way of donating, because quite frankly, I've spent the past 2 years, 24 months now, focusing on growing and getting better at what we do.
Yes.
And also consolidating on the work, because to be honest, I've been laser focused on that.
Well, that's refreshing, actually. Actually, that's quite refreshing, Lola. Usually people start fundraising before they do the work. You've done it the proper way. But do think...
But I'm not alone. There's 24 other women who are helping, who are helping me, who are moderating these groups along with me,
right.
And giving and sacrificing themselves to help make a difference. It's amazing.
It's brilliant. Well, as you move toward a goal of brick and mortar safe spaces where access to world communication for women is more of a reality, will you please check back with us so that we can announce it? And I have a very active listenership, and I know that they would be incredibly supportive of this, and it deserves support.
Wow. I really appreciate that. That is really everything. It makes me feel like it's not a pipe dream.
Well, it's not a pipe dream at all. I mean, and in pipe dreams begins reality, my dear. Thank you, my sister, for everything that you've been doing. You've been saving lives, literally. No hyperbole, no exaggeration, and clearly you're going to continue doing that. And I'm very grateful that you're on this planet and that you talked with us today. We'll come back to you and check in again if that's okay.
Anytime. It's my pleasure.
Time for one last pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back in just a moment with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again to some fighting words. People have confused the resurfacing of feminism in the 1960s and 70s with what got called the sexual revolution. But that was a sexual revolution for men. It never happened for women. The sexual revolution for women is happening now. And it's moving so fast that by the time you hear these words, they will likely already be outdated. Women are bursting forth out of silence, and what we have to say hurts the heart and brain and body, but these voices are what freedom sounds like. I had planned to aim this fighting words at a comic artist, much of whose work I have enjoyed until so-called rumors of recent months, Louis C.K. Fortunately, New York Times film critic Manohla Dargis has done it again, and written with all the feminist wisdom and fire imaginable on that subject in her piece, Louis C.K. and Hollywood's Canon of Creeps. So I'm free to discuss the politicians, at least for now. You can find her piece online. As of now, or for the next 30 seconds, the national GOP is writhing in agony, not knowing what to do about Alabama's Roy Moore. The Alabama Republican Party stands by him fully, but then by the time you hear this, Alabama may have seceded from the Union again. As of now, with revelations about Senator Al Franken, the Democrats also have themselves quite a predicament. Why is this so hard for these guys to figure out? Is it because they have been thinking with their genitals and not with what passes for their brains? It seems pretty clear to me. Roy Moore, this sanctimonious pervert who calls his campaign a spiritual war, who was banned from a shopping mall for hitting on teenage kids, who is backed by corrupt huckster pastors reminiscent of Jimmy Swaggart and Jim Baker, all the Elmer Gantrys, in fact, this twice-expelled Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, once for defying a federal court ruling to remove the Ten Commandments from government property, and once for defying the United States Supreme Court after it legalized marriage equality. This fake jurist who ruled from the bench against child rape survivors and in favor of their attackers. This stinking piece of excrement who even today attacks at this writing 9 women who have come forward to speak of assaults and molestations he perpetrated on them when they were teenage girls. No, he should not become a United States Senator. Yes, if Alabama elects him and the Senate cannot refuse to seat him, then the Senate should immediately expel him from seating. Yes. 2. I will still defend to my utmost pluralism as well as the freedom of and from religion. But I recognize that most evangelical Christians do not extend such a defense to include me. I have no frame of reference to reason with someone who says they will support Moore even if he is a child molester. For me, such evangelicals have forfeited all pretense of moral standing, not when they cite Joseph and Mary to defend child rape. And, also not when they ask for the nation's prayers after a white Texas church is shot up, but still defend their guns more vociferously than their own Christ's teachings. Oh, I still hold out quixotic hope that more evangelical women than we suspect may be so outraged they'll surprise their men and their state at the Alabama polls. But it behooves us to remember that they live in fear and silence. When New Yorker magazine writer Charles Bethia went to Gadsden, Alabama to report on the mall story, many locals were willing to tell him that everybody knew about Judge Moore. They warned their friends, they watched their daughters, common knowledge. But very, very few, not the pastors, not the cops, not the mall workers, would let him use their names. That small-town, cramped, oppressive tribal fear of being ostracized, of violence, of hellfire. How much more intense must it be for the women? 3. And now there's Democratic Senator Al Franken, former comedian, hard-working, progressive hero. Liberals and lefties dare not, must not tread the same hypocritical path as Alabama's evangelicals. Yes, there's a difference between the kind of power a district attorney in a small southern town wields and the kind of power held by a comedian who at the time had no senatorial aspirations. But male power is there in both situations and was abused in both. And yes, in fairness, Senator Franken's response is a polar opposite from the defiant denunciations, evasions, justifications, and smears coming from Roy Moore. But Franken's apology and remorse was due 11 years earlier, and it would have been even better if it wasn't needed to begin with. Clearly, the nice guys with progressive policies make better apologists. Think Louis C.K. Think Anthony Weiner in tears and now in jail. Not that Woody Allen, or for that matter, Bill Clinton, ever even bothered to apologize. It's really not that complicated, people. Listen to the women. Believe the women. Push for the kind of legislation I mentioned in episode 224 and in my blog post, Me Too. Push for more women to hold positions of power, which is the only one sure way to avoid this entrenched, entitled behavior continuing forever. Most of all, understand that this upheaval looks to be not just another tipping point, as I had feared. This is the Lexington and Concord of the real sexual revolution, which means, sisters and friends, that however ragged and tattered of a revolutionary army we are, We are not petitioning the king any longer. And we cannot let up the pressure now for one moment. Democracy is not a spectator sport. If you are a woman who has not yet come forth to #MeToo, now's the time. It gets easier with each new voice. If you are a well-known woman who has been afraid to challenge a powerful man, this is the time. Your voice carries unfairly disproportionate weight, so use it proudly and well. If you know a woman who needs encouragement to come forth and speak her own reality, give her that encouragement. Words matter, and numbers matter. This is a numbers game, since each woman freeing her voice makes it safer for herself and for the next women. And we need every voice we can get in every school, every industry, every state house, every country. This treatment of women lies at the heart of feminism's struggle. It's the real reason women don't get equal pay, the real reason we're denied reproductive rights, the real reason we're regarded as virgins or whores, the real reason we are considered prey. But we must build on this now, every day, with more revelations, letting up not for a second, and eyes on the prize. Remember the at least 10 women who came forward during Trump's campaign to, as evangelists would say, testify about Trump's various assaults, which in his case he boasted openly about on audio tape, videotape, The Howard Stern Show, and reportedly in numerous taped rehearsals of The Apprentice, still hidden, buried in NBC's vaults. Demand their release. Remember there's a lawsuit pending. The plaintiff, a woman named Summer Zervos, a former contestant on The Apprentice, who claims that Trump defamed her when he described her and other accusers as liars, political hacks, or losers seeking money or fame. Trump is claiming you can't bring a lawsuit against a sitting president, but Zervos has responded with a Supreme Court ruling that allowed Paula Jones to bring a sexual harassment suit against President Bill Clinton while he was in office. Other women have said they would welcome the opportunity to provide depositions in the case. The lawsuit is now before New York State Supreme Court Judge Jennifer Schechter. It alleges emotional harm, and it seeks only $3,000 in economic damage because money is not its purpose. Its purpose is truth. Rachel Crooks, Jessica Leeds, Summer Zervos, these are the names we should be hearing again before the end of this year against the predator-in-chief, who is terrified by Roy Moore's proximity and contagion. These are the names that could bring Trump down. And while we're at it, where is the band of intrepid lawyers who will finally spearhead a public relations impeachment campaign against Clarence Thomas, as the right wing did against Justice Earl Warren for so many years? The whole world knows the truth about what Thomas did to Anita Hill. Well, I believe the women. I believe Ashley Judd and Rose McGowan and Maria Teresa Kumar and Lee Kaufman, who got robbed of part of her soul when she was just 14 years old. I believe myself, and I still believe Anita Hill. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag Fighting Words and hashtag #MeToo. And that's it for today. We're going to take a week off for Thanksgiving. I am thankful for you in my life, but we will be back on December 3rd. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMClive.com. There you can get the show, plus the archive of all the previous episodes, and also at iTunes, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter, and you can check out my website and my blog at robinmorgan.net. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us, not next week, but on December 3rd, when we'll be right back, right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.